That day, Jackson left work earlier than usual. It wasn't planned. His boss had mentioned something about storm warnings, about getting home before the Atlanta traffic turned into a nightmare, but Jackson knew that wasn't why he left. There was something else, a pull, an instinct he couldn't name. As he drove through the quiet streets of Buckhead, past the magnolias swaying in the autumn wind, he couldn't shake off a strange unease, like a whisper in the back of his mind, the kind of feeling that settles into your chest and refuses to leave. The roads were emptier than usual for a Thursday afternoon. The sky hung low and gray, heavy with the promise of rain. Jackson turned up the radio, hoping the noise would drown out the gnawing sense that something wasn't right. It didn't work. Every red light felt too long. Every turn toward home felt urgent. When he finally pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as it always did. The porch light was on. Mary's car sat in its usual spot. The flower boxes she'd planted in spring still bloomed with late-season petunias. Everything was normal. Everything was fine. But when Jackson stepped through the front door, the silence hit him like a wave. No music playing from the kitchen. No sound of Mary humming while she chopped vegetables or folded laundry. No joyful bark from Goldie announcing his arrival. Just stillness. A hollow, unsettling quiet that made his skin prickle. "Mary?" he called out, his voice echoing through the hallway. No answer. He walked deeper into the house, his shoes soft against the hardwood floors. The living room was dim, curtains half drawn. And then he saw them. Mary, his wife of 7 years, was sitting cross-legged on the floor in the center of the room. Goldie, their golden Labrador, was pressed tightly against her stomach, her body curled protectively around Mary's torso. The dog's head rested on Mary's lap, unmoving. Mary's hand lay gently on Goldie's back, her fingers barely moving through the soft fur. Jackson stopped in his tracks. Nothing was wrong, per se. Mary wasn't crying. Goldie wasn't whining. There was no visible injury, no sign of distress. But the atmosphere felt hollow, unsettling, as if something fundamental had shifted in silence. The way Mary stared at the wall, the way Goldie refused to look up at him, the weight of the moment, it all felt wrong. "Mare," Jackson said softly, stepping closer. "You okay?" Mary blinked slowly, as if waking from a trance. She looked up at him with tired eyes and offered a faint smile. "I'm fine. Goldie just wanted to be close today." Jackson knelt down beside them, reaching out to scratch Goldie's ears. The dog didn't move. She didn't wag her tail or lick his hand the way she usually did. She just stayed there, pressed against Mary like a shield, her brown eyes fixed on something Jackson couldn't see. "Has she been like this all day?" he asked. Mary nodded. "Since this morning. She won't leave my side." Jackson frowned. "Maybe she's not feeling well." "Maybe," Mary whispered, but she didn't sound convinced. That was the beginning. In the days that followed, Jackson began to feel like a stranger in his own home. Goldie clung to Mary like a shadow, following her from room to room, lying at her feet, pressing herself against Mary's body whenever they sat down. If Mary went to the bathroom, Goldie waited outside the door. If Mary went to bed, Goldie climbed onto the mattress and curled up beside her, taking Jackson's spot without apology. At first, Jackson tried to laugh it off. "Guess I've been replaced," he joked one evening, standing awkwardly at the foot of the bed while Goldie occupied his pillow. Mary smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "She's just being clingy. It'll pass." But it didn't pass.
Jackson tried everything. He suggested a weekend trip to the mountains, just the two of them, a cabin with a fireplace and no distractions. Mary gently declined. "Goldie can't be left alone right now," she said softly. He planned long walks through Piedmont Park, romantic dinners at the Italian place where they'd had their first date, movie nights with all her favorite films. Each time, Mary shook her head. "I don't want to leave her," she said. "She needs me." Jackson started resenting the dog, not in anger, but in sadness, a deep, aching sadness that made him feel small and selfish. He missed Mary. He missed the way she used to laugh at his terrible jokes, the way she'd curl up beside him on the couch, the way she'd reach for his hand without thinking. He missed them, the life they'd built together, the easy intimacy that now felt impossibly far away. One night, in desperation, Jackson decided to give Goldie her own room. He cleared out the guest bedroom, bought a plush dog bed, filled it with toys and blankets, and gently led Goldie inside. "This is your space, girl," he said, trying to sound cheerful. "You'll love it." He closed the door softly and returned to the bedroom, hoping that maybe, just maybe, Mary would reach for him again. But that night, Goldie cried. Not a loud, demanding bark, a quiet, heartbroken whimper that drifted through the walls like a ghost. Jackson tried to ignore it, tried to focus on Mary beside him, but the sound cut through everything. When he checked on Goldie an hour later, she was sitting by the door, trembling. Her food bowl was untouched. Her eyes were full of something Jackson didn't understand: fear, pain, love, all tangled together in a way that made his chest tighten. He opened the door. Goldie bolted past him and ran straight to Mary, climbing back onto the bed and pressing herself against Mary's stomach. Mary didn't say anything. She just wrapped her arms around the dog and held her close. Jackson stood in the doorway, feeling utterly lost. The next morning he made a decision. Maybe Goldie was sick. Maybe there was something physically wrong with her, something that explained this behavior. He called the vet, made an appointment, and drove Goldie in himself. The vet was a kind woman named Dr. Patel who had been treating Goldie since she was a puppy. She examined the dog thoroughly, checking her heart, her joints, her teeth, running her hands along Goldie's body while murmuring soothing words. Goldie sat perfectly still, patient and calm. After 20 minutes, Dr. Patel looked up at Jackson with a thoughtful expression. "I don't think she's unwell," she said carefully. Jackson frowned. "Then what's going on? She's acting completely differently." Dr. Patel hesitated, choosing her words. "Dogs are incredibly perceptive, especially when it comes to their owners. They can sense changes we can't see yet, hormonal shifts, chemical imbalances, even illness." She paused. "It's possible Goldie is reacting to something happening with your wife, something physical." Jackson felt the floor tilt beneath him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Dr. Patel said gently, "that you should get Mary checked, soon." The drive home was a blur. Jackson's hands shook on the steering wheel. His mind raced through every possibility, every worst-case scenario. When he got home, he found Mary in the kitchen, making tea. Goldie was, of course, right beside her. "Mare," Jackson said, his voice tight, "we need to talk."
2 days later, they sat in a sterile doctor's office, holding hands while the oncologist explained the diagnosis. A tumor, small but real, nestled in a place where it could have gone unnoticed for months, maybe years. Caught just in time, the doctor said, early enough that surgery was an option, early enough that the prognosis was good. Jackson's heart sank, not with despair, but with a terrible, overwhelming realization. All he could think about was Goldie, her eyes, her silence, her stubborn refusal to leave Mary's side, her warnings. Mary cried in his arms that night, and Jackson held her tightly, whispering promises he intended to keep. But part of him was somewhere else, kneeling beside their golden Labrador, apologizing for not understanding sooner. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Jackson took time off work. He packed Mary's hospital bag,
made sure all her favorite things were there: her book, her phone charger, the lavender lotion she loved. He stayed by her side every day. He read to her when she couldn't sleep, made her laugh when the fear crept in, held her hand when she drifted off under the weight of exhaustion and medication. He never once looked at Goldie the same again. When Mary was finally discharged, weak but smiling, Jackson drove them home slowly, carefully, as if the car carried the most precious cargo in the world. He helped Mary up the front steps, his arm around her waist, supporting her weight. The moment they opened the door, Goldie was there. She didn't jump, she didn't bark. She moved with grace and quiet joy, her tail wagging gently as she approached Mary. She touched Mary's hand with her nose, soft and deliberate, and looked up at her with those deep brown eyes that had seen everything, known everything. And in that moment, Jackson finally understood. This dog didn't just love them, she protected them. She had known, in a way that transcended language and logic, that something was wrong. She had sounded the alarm in the only way she knew how, by refusing to leave, by pressing close, by making herself impossible to ignore. From that day forward, Jackson no longer saw Goldie as a pet. She was a guardian, a quiet soul in golden fur who had given them a gift beyond measure. When he looked at her now, he saw not an animal, but a member of the family who had saved them. Mary healed slowly, day by day. Jackson was there for every step, every small victory. And Goldie remained close, always watching, always present, her devotion unwavering. They were no longer husband, wife, and dog. They were a family bound by love, trust, and one silent miracle. A family that had been broken and made whole again, thanks to the quiet wisdom of a golden Labrador who understood what words could never say. Jackson would never forget the lesson Goldie taught him, that love comes in many forms, and sometimes the deepest kind doesn't speak at all. It simply stays. It simply knows. It simply protects.